offer.
Welcome to UFO Headline News with me, Heidi Hollis. Today is Saturday, December 2nd, 2017. Blasting off with UFO reports, there was a UFO sighting in New Bedford, Massachusetts on July 10th, 2017 at 9:25 p.m. Waiting for a cab, started looking in sky, saw lights, grabbed cam, took pics, found 3 objects circle each other, see figure 8s, and combine into one, and then disappeared. The witness goes on to state on July 10th, 2017 at 9:26 p.m., while waiting for a cab in front of the porch, I noticed up in the clear blue sky in my area 3 objects like dancing around up in the sky. Round in shape, wondered if seagulls, but distance was too far and too high to be. Planes, airport close by, but these objects were circling each other. 1 in a straight line, 2 alternating under control, each other like all at once, in sync for about 20 minutes, approximately. A neighbor was walking by at the same time and noticed, questioned me about it, and was amazed by the flight pattern. Toward the end of the path, they formed a straight line up and down. The top one hovered while the bottom one rose into the middle one. The middle one rose up into the top one. The top one glowed brightly as the final one had all of the objects in it. And as it brightly glowed, just vanished. Poof! Gone. Neighbor was in awe as well as myself. Pictures were taken in haste, but I still got them. All above are witness facts and are true to the best of my knowledge. Next, a UFO sighting in Mars Hill, North Carolina, on November 21st, 2017. 2 light orbs hovering over mountain forests, moving independently, bobbing up and down, then disappearing upwards. The witness states, my husband and I live at a high elevation, 4,000 feet, in the Pisgah National Forest, and have a clear view of the surrounding mountains. This is the second time we have both seen strange orbs in the night sky in the evening from our back deck. In both cases, there were 2 light orbs, larger and brighter than the light from the stars, that hovered just above the mountain range horizon. They would bob and hover, moving both left and right and up and down, but mostly up and down as though bouncing. The movement was too extreme to be helicopters and far too fast. After about 10 minutes of watching them hover over the forest, they would ascend upwards very quickly, and then the light would disappear. The second time we saw this, a few days ago, there were multiple aircraft in the air all around them. The aircraft did not go near the orbs, but created a circle around them. There is an airport by Johnson City in Asheville. On this night, we saw 1 airplane taking a north-south flight path, but there were several other craft in the sky with blinking lights that appeared stationary and were at the higher elevation in the sky, on all sides around the orbs. The orbs were too far away to get any good photos or to see shape, but they did appear slightly elongated or oval instead of round. The orbs bobbed and hovered for about 10 minutes, then slowly bobbed along the mountain horizon. Following the slope of the tallest mountain range, one of them disappeared below the mountain range, and the other stayed in the sky and hovered at the peak of the range before we went inside. The section of forest behind us has very few homes, if any, since most of it's national forest, so we have little light pollution. We estimate that these orbs were approximately 2 miles away because the ridge of that one of the orbs disappeared behind is about 1 3/4 miles away as the crow flies. The next UFO sighting is a sighting in New Milford, Connecticut. This occurred November 16, 2017. Briefly, large oblong silver disc with ball or egg-shaped structure attached, materialized, descending and turning, and then ascended and disappeared. The witness goes on to detail, I was driving near an area I had seen a UFO a year earlier. The weather conditions were the same as the last sighting. The air had a feeling to it that was familiar, and I was compelled to drive to the location. I had a feeling I was going to see something. I parked the car so I could look at the area of the sky I saw in the last one. I rolled down the side window and got my binoculars and iPhone camera ready. I was there about 20 minutes watching passenger jet traffic. I looked down at my phone, and when I looked at the sky again, the craft appeared descending in a turning maneuver. It then started to ascend, still turning. I took my eyes off of it for less than a second to take a picture, and when I looked again, it was gone. Very frustrating. I decided I would take some pictures of the sky anyway to see if the camera could see what I could not. And in one of the pictures, an object was there, but much further away and no longer had the brilliance it once had. I noticed the object because I was looking for it, and it was bright silver and reflecting light from the low sun on the horizon. I have seen jets reflect the sun in the same way at times, but the shape, maneuvering, and flight characteristics was nothing like a jet. It did not seem to be relying on the atmosphere for flight. I can't describe it entirely, but it had a kind of floating light. It looked like an oval disc with a strange ball or egg sitting on top, or something, like a teacup on a saucer. They seemed to be two separate parts, like one was getting a ride from the other. It was extremely bright silver and was reflecting light from the sun. At the distance I saw it at, I would estimate it to at least be the size of a Boeing 747. The strangest thing is, I knew I would see it. I could feel it in the air. The air felt the same as when I saw one about a year earlier in the same location. We had just had rain and the storm was over. The sky was clearing with very few clouds left. I even had the car positioned so well the object appeared in the center of the piece of the sky I was watching through the driver's side window. Even though I had the camera in my lap, it was something so out of the ordinary, it was almost hypnotizing. I had to force myself to try and take a picture. See file number 1, original photo, and file number 2, enlargement, and file number 3 shows things in a row. Are they clouds? File number 4, enlargement. File number 5, color enhanced enlargement. I will also post drawings with compass headings, GPS, and coordinates. Wow, fascinating. The next UFO sighting occurred in Phoenix, Arizona, November 23rd, 2017. In brief, saw several glowing orbs hovering and shifting formations, appearing and disappearing, not conventional aircraft. The witness goes on to state, I was outside with my dog and happened to look over my shoulder and saw 5 orange glowing hovering orbs approximately 2 to 3 miles away. It's hard to say, but they were no higher than 1,000 feet in altitude. I was stunned by what I saw because immediately I could tell these were not conventional aircraft that I have ever seen. First, they hung in the air in a triangular formation with 2 above. Then they all shifted into a perfect straight line. I tried to capture it with my cell phone camera, but was unable, so I called my wife outside. She saw what I saw and was equally amazed. A family out on an evening walk also witnessed it, as did my landlord and his partner. Also, a car pulled up and asked us if we were looking at the lights. They disappeared, and we went back into the house. I had a feeling that wasn't it, so I went right back outside, and within a minute, They started to reappear. This time, we witnessed a total of 7 of them in strange patterns, appearing and disappearing. Eventually, they all disappeared, and we also noticed there was absolutely no air traffic over Phoenix. Helicopters made a beeline out of that area. It was as if the whole area was cleared of all air traffic for about 20 minutes, which typically, this time of evening, and also being Thanksgiving, there is usually lots of air traffic. I am certain this was witnessed by many people in Phoenix, and yet nothing on the news. Not a surprise. A blast from the past UFO sighting. A UFO sighting in Weldon, North Carolina that occurred on September 10th, 1971. The witness states, I was at a friend's house with my brother and we started home, and that's when we noticed a red blinking light over Mr. Jones' house. After watching this for a while, my little brother went into the house and we had determined that the light was a lot further away. I stayed and watched it. When I seen it move, I first thought it was a plane. But then I saw a plane going across the sky in another direction. This object darted very fast to the right and then back to the left. I had a lit cigarette and was getting ready to put it out and go into the house when all of a sudden the ground around me was glowing red and then a bright red. I stuck my hands out and they were red and bright red too. So I looked up and there it was. A round object about 50 feet in the air just over my grandmother's house. I could see that the light it was casting was like a flashlight, but only under this craft. It was red and then bright red. I could hear a humming noise coming from it. Then I heard a noise come from it, and a yellow light came on under it. I noticed that around the bottom I could see what looked like small round windows. This object then started lowering to the ground about 10 to 20 feet above my grandmother's house, and I saw the yellow light move in my direction. It scared me, so I ran underneath the tree in our yard. The yellow light stopped. I knew no one would believe me, so I ran to the front door, but kept watching this object. It never moved as I was trying to find the doorknob. I looked away just to find the doorknob. It was still there when I opened the door and told my mom to come here. When I looked back, it was gone. I told my mom what I had seen, and I went outside to see if it would come back. It never did. But about 5 years ago, around the time that I saw this item, I got a strange feeling to go back and look for it. But I never did. Strange thing about this is that I had not thought of this in years. Another blast from the past. UFO sighting in Bedford, Nevada. This occurred on April 8th of 2001. 4 to 6 foot orb hovered below wingtip of private jet flying at 45,000 feet for about 3 minutes. The witness states, I was a professional private flight attendant for 20 years, flying from Vinoy, California to Sun Valley, Idaho. There was only one passenger who was sleeping. Flying northeast with the sun about 10 degrees to the west, about a half hour from sunset, and we're flying at the western border of Area 51. I looked out the large Gulfstream aircraft window toward the east and saw an orb, about 4 to 6 feet in diameter, hovering below the starboard winglet. It was stationary, like a scene from a bad sci-fi movie. This went on for about 3 minutes. I could not believe my eyes. It was silver, gold, brown in color, and a perfect orb shape. I stared at it until it rapidly raced off and vanished. I went to the cockpit and asked the pilots if they saw anything on there, traffic collision avoidance system, which they
A medium or larger Dunkin' Donuts hot chocolate is now $1.99. Enjoy original, Dunkachino, or the new Almond Joy flavored hot chocolate. Yeah, Almond Joy flavor. And enjoy all that chocolate deliciousness for $1.99. So go ahead, give yourself some hot chocolate happiness for $1.99. It's like a warm and fuzzy chocolatey hug. America runs on Dunkin'. Participation may vary, limited time offer.
replied, no. They made a radio call to ground control, who told them there was no traffic in the area. After flying professionally for years, I firmly believe in outside forces in the universe, as I have now witnessed it. Wow, pretty wild. On to paranormal points. The Sioux City entity. The brave victims of this ordeal have allowed me to disclose their story. They have also agreed to have their names made public. This case was presented for the first time during an emotional interview that was broadcast live on Beyond the Edge Radio on parax.com, June 15th, 2014. And it goes on to read, the first few months of the investigation, I was still working with the original group. 2 remote view sessions were conducted in order to gather evidence. Several conferences were held with the clients. Unfortunately, Sabrina was still exhibiting extreme bipolar-like behavior. Even though we were on Skype, we could still observe her fairly well on the cam. She literally changed physically, especially her face. Erlina had described Sabrina's activity as well, writing unknown words and talking unknown languages. Her condition was affecting everybody in the house. We were told that Sabrina's bedroom was the most active, so we placed the laptop in the middle of the room and directed the camera on an area we were told noises had been heard. Everybody left the room as we watched on Skype. In a 10-minute period, we observed the desk light twice fade in and out, and the framed picture on the wall move a few inches across the wall. So we were convinced that some type of paranormal energy was present. By April 2013, it was obvious that we were getting nowhere with the case. Activity was occurring day and night. Everybody in the house was experiencing something. Shadows were seen in the hallway, banging on the walls. Objects would go missing, items flung across the room, as well as a menacing feeling anytime someone would walk into the house. I decided to take on the case exclusively while the group worked on other projects. Not long after that, I left the group, but I personally continued to work with the Sioux City clients at their request. I told the sisters that if they needed me to contact me at any time, 24/7, I was determined to find the actual cause of the disturbances. I worked one-on-one with Sabrina and Erlina for the next 8 months, basically learning all I could about the history of the family and investigating incidences during their lifetime. One particular incident occurred during this period that suggested to me that this entity was more than just a malevolent earthbound energy. Erlina has reported to me that an inverted peace symbol had manifested on the closet wall in one of the bedrooms. It seemed as though it was painted on the dry wall, but was impossible to scrub off. I instructed her to paint over it after I consulted with a known occultist who stated that it was a sigil that implied hate and deceit. The investigative process was very slow and tedious, but eventually some helpful information came forward. At one period in the sisters' life, they lived with relatives in Arlington, Texas. I started to research the history of the house, which was built by their grandmother, and the property, and discovered a few interesting facts. For whatever reason, the house and property were valued far less than any other house and property in the huge subdivision. The house had several subsequent residents. Some had died there. I decided that I needed to conduct a controlled remote view along with 2 associates and a monitor. The session revealed that several rituals had been conducted on the property and that the property also had a stigma attached to it by others in the neighborhood. The location also possessed a deep sense of sorrow and hate. We also felt that there were a lot of lingering issues that revolved around the property. The viewers each reached this conclusion. I decided not to reveal this information to the clients at the time. I'm glad I didn't, because Erlina soon asked me if I could determine the fate of her missing aunt. While they were living in Arlington, her aunt disappeared after leaving with some people one afternoon at the house. The last time they saw her was when she got into the car. I conducted a distant reading a few days later, which I used to discern information while I'm in a heightened perceptive state. It can be described as an extension of my 5 senses. I usually execute these sessions alone. I don't want anyone accusing me of cold reading a client, though it would be conducted on Skype. Voice inflection can still give a reader certain clues, so I just avoid duality as much as possible. I sensed that the aunt was no longer among the living. Finding a body would require some field work, which I wasn't in the position to do. This disappearance had weighed heavily on the family for many years. I believe that much of this sorrow, combined with the malevolent energies within the Texas house, seeded something within the sisters. The clients had moved to Nebraska, then Iowa, where they reside today. Whatever this energy was, it traveled with them, continuing to grow when times were tough, when life seemed out of control. It became apparent that both Erlina and Sabrina are spirit beacons. They attract spiritual energy. In fact, much of the immediate family are empathic and seem to easily take on emotions of other family members, even at great distances. I have seen this phenomenon before, but not to the degree that this family exhibited. All of this needed to be taken into consideration when determining the cause of the disturbances. Erlina is a deeply devout Christian. I truly believe that her faith and confidence allows her to keep this entity at bay, even though she did experience paranormal activity. On the other hand, Sabrina had more pressing personal issues. By the time 2012 rolled around, this entity had grown to a point where she could no longer control it. It followed her everywhere, even to her workplace. It was determined by me, and with some consultation with colleagues, that Sabrina had been plagued by a thought form entity, a mind-created supernatural being, a poltergeist. Regardless of what is presented on television and the movies, poltergeist activity is very rare. There are several theories as to what a poltergeist is, but it seems that it always has 2 relative factors. One would be psychokinesis, or PK, which is an ability that allows a person to influence objects or people without physical interaction. The other factor would be malevolency towards the oppressed and those around them. A poltergeist haunting can only be curtailed by the person generating the entity. This involves instruction in how to control emotions and fear, as well as avoiding uncontrollable situations. This is the point where the overwhelming spirit energy at the location comes into play. As a result of the crash of United Airlines Flight 232, there are many wandering spirits in the vicinity. many of which don't realize that they are no longer part of a living body or remain for other reasons. Malevolent entities require energy to remain viable. If they cannot feed on human emotion and life force, then they need to look elsewhere. Earth-bound spirits are fodder for stronger entities, and this was the reason it became so difficult to weaken this troublesome entity. I instructed Erlina on how to form a barrier around the residence in order to keep earth-bound spirits out of the house. We were starting to see a change and a lessening of the activity. Sabrina still has an attachment with her, but she has moved out of her sister's home and has moved in with her fiancé. As well, she is no longer living near the airport and the mass of earthbound energies. The degree of her torment has significantly lessened. I continue to provide support, which includes guidance and instruction. Aftercare can be a long-term commitment in certain cases. These services are provided at no cost. I only ask that the client have an open mind. The discipline to follow my recommendations and remain positive, which is imperative in order to resolve their problem. The information behind the author of this article can be found on our website. Thank you all once again for listening to UFO Headline News with me, Heidi Hollis. Be sure to check out ufoheadlinenews.com. Visit it daily. And also tune in to my other weekly show, The Outlander, Fridays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. And catch my paranormal comic, The Outlanders. Direct links can be found at HeidiHollis.com or just come to InceptionRadioNetwork.com. Remember always to keep informed and inspired.
A medium or larger Dunkin' Donuts hot chocolate is now $1.99. Enjoy original, Dunkachino, or the new Almond Joy flavored hot chocolate. Yeah, Almond Joy flavor. And enjoy all that chocolate deliciousness for $1.99. So go ahead, give yourself some hot chocolate happiness for $1.99. It's like a warm and fuzzy chocolatey hug. America runs on Dunkin'. Participation may vary, limited time offer.